My wife divorced me from my billionaire brother, knowing I was the one who made him rich. Charlotte. Thought she was trading up when she left me for Logan. After all, what woman wouldn't choose a tech mogul with private jets and penthouse? Suites over a quiet financial analyst working from a cramped downtown office? For 5 years, she watched Logan's empire grow while dismissing me as the unsuccessful, his brother who could barely afford our mortgage payments. She saw his name on magazine covers, his face at exclusive galas, his company's dominating headlines. What she never discovered was the truth behind it. Those late nights I spent working on boring spreadsheets, the anonymous investment funds, the strategic financial moves, the shadow partnerships that turned Logan from a failed entrepreneur into a billion-dollar success story. When Charlotte filed for divorce to marry my brother, she thought she knew exactly what she was getting. She had no idea what she was giving up. But secrets this big never stay buried forever. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you. Make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The flash of cameras lit up the ballroom of the Metropolitan Grand Hotel as Charlotte adjusted her diamond earrings and smiled for the society photographers. Beside her, Logan Green commanded attention. In his perfectly tailored Armani suit, his arm casually draped around her waist as if he owned the world, which, according to Forbes, he practically did. "Mr. Green, can you tell us about the new acquisition?" a reporter called out, shoving a microphone toward Logan's face. Logan flashed his trademark confident smile. TechFlow Industries was a natural fit for our portfolio. We're always looking to expand into emerging markets. I watched from across the room, nursing a glass of champagne that cost more than most people's weekly groceries. In my modest department store suit, I might as well have been invisible. Just Samuel Hughes, the quiet financial analyst who somehow managed to afford a ticket to these exclusive events. What none of them knew, not the reporters, not the other guests, and certainly not my wife, was that I had spent the last 3 months orchestrating every detail of that acquisition, the shell companies, the strategic investments, the carefully timed market moves that made it possible. All of it traced back to encrypted emails sent from my cramped office at 2 a.m. Charlotte's laugh rang out like crystal bells as Logan whispered something in her ear. She was radiant tonight, wearing the sapphire necklace I'd bought her for our anniversary last year. Back then, she'd asked how I could afford it on my analyst salary. I'd told her I'd been saving up, picking up freelance work, another lie in the carefully constructed web I'd been weaving for 5 years. The truth was simpler and more complicated than anyone imagined. When Logan's first startup crashed spectacularly in 2018, he'd come to me broken and desperate. Our parents had always favored him, the charismatic older brother with big dreams and bigger failures. But that night, sitting in my kitchen with tears in his eyes, he'd begged me for help. "I can't fail again, Sam," he'd whispered.
"You can't
face Mom and Dad. I can't face myself," so I'd helped. A small, anonymous investment here, a strategic partnership there. I'd use my connections in the financial world, my understanding of market patterns, my talent for seeing opportunities others missed. I'd built Logan's empire from the shadows, one careful move at a time. What started as brotherly love had become something else entirely, a twisted game where I fed my wife's husband Tubi the resources he needed to steal her away from me, because that's what was happening, wasn't it? I could see it in the way Charlotte's eyes followed Logan around the room, the way she hung on his every word about market disruption and technological innovation. She'd started asking me why I couldn't be more ambitious, more driven, more like Logan. If only she knew that Logan's brilliant business insights came from our late-night phone calls where I'd walk him through market analysis reports I'd spent weeks preparing. His natural instinct for investment opportunities was actually my carefully researched recommendations, delivered through encrypted messages and anonymous tip sheets. The irony was suffocating. My wife was falling in love with my own creation. "Samuel," Charlotte's voice cut through my thoughts as she approached, her cheeks flushed with excitement. "Logan was just telling me about his plans for the European expansion. Isn't it incredible?" I forced a smile, glancing at my brother who was deep in conversation with a tech journalist. "Credible," I agreed, taking another sip of champagne. He's invited us to spend the weekend at his estate in Millbrook Heights, Charlotte continued, her eyes sparkling. Can you imagine? That mansion has been featured in Architectural Digest 3 times. The mansion I'd helped him buy with profits. From investments I'd orchestrated, the artwork on the walls purchased with dividends from companies I'd guided him toward. Even the wine cellar stocked with bottles I'd recommended after researching vintages for months. That sounds wonderful, I said. My voice steady despite the knot forming in my stomach. Charlotte squeezed my arm. But her attention was already drifting back toward Logan. You know, sometimes I wonder what our life would be like if you had. His drive, his vision. The words hit like a physical blow, but I kept smiling. How could I tell her that everything she admired about Logan, his success, his confidence, his apparent genius, was really mine? That I'd been the puppet master, pulling the strings of our family's golden boy while she'd been falling for the performance. As the evening wore on, I watched Charlotte gravitate more and more toward Logan's orbit, drawn like a moth to a flame that I had carefully kindled and maintained for years. I had created my own worst nightmare, and I was the only one who knew. 3 weeks after the Metropolitan Grand Hotel Gala, everything changed with a single phone call. I was in my office at Meridian Financial, buried in quarterly reports, when my phone buzzed with Logan's name. This wasn't unusual. We spoke several times a week about his business decisions. What was unusual was the panic in his voice. Sam, I need you right now. It's about the Singapore deal. I closed my laptop and grabbed my jacket. What happened? Me at Thornfield Country Club. Come alone. Thornfield was Logan's preferred playground, where titans of industry played golf and made handshake deals worth billions. I found him in the oak-paneled library, pacing like a caged animal with a crystal tumbler of whiskey in his hand, despite it being barely noon. The Singapore investors want to meet next week, he said without preamble. They're flying in specifically to see me present the expansion strategy. That's good news, I replied carefully. You've been preparing for this for months. Logan's laugh was bitter. Preparing? Sam, you and I both know I can't present anything without your notes. I can't answer their technical questions. I barely understand half the financial projections you've given me. This was the first time in 5 years that Logan had explicitly acknowledged our arrangement. Usually, we maintained the fiction that he was the genius, and I was just offering brotherly advice. We'll be fine, I said. But even I didn't sound convinced. No, I won't. Logan collapsed into a leather armchair, suddenly looking older than his 35 years. Remember when we were teenagers, and I used to copy your homework? Mom and Dad thought I was the smart one because I got the same grades as you, but with more charm. I remembered. I also remembered never saying anything because I'd wanted Logan to succeed, to be happy, to live up to our parents' expectations. This is different, I said. I've learned nothing. Logan's voice cracked. I'm still the same. Failure who crashed 3 startups before you started helping me. And now, I'm in over my head with a woman who deserves better than both of us. My blood turned to ice. What woman? Logan met my eyes, and I saw guilt written across his face. Charlotte. She's been... We've been talking. A lot about everything. About you, about me, about what she wants in life. The room felt like it was spinning. What exactly have you been talking about? She feels trapped, Sam. Trapped in a marriage with someone who has no ambition, no drive. Accomplished. And she wonders why you've never achieved anything close to it. If he only knew that I'd achieved everything he had and more, I just didn't take credit for it. She's married to me, I said quietly. Are you happy? Logan asked suddenly. Really? Truly happy? Because Charlotte isn't? And I... He took a shaky sip of whiskey. I think I'm falling in love with her. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Everything I'd built, everything I'd sacrificed, had led to this moment. My brother was confessing that he was stealing my wife with the very success I'd given him. She doesn't know about us, Logan continued. About how you've been helping me? She thinks your content being ordinary. She admires me for being everything you're not. And you're going to let her keep thinking that? Logan looked away. What choice do I have? If she knew the truth, she'd hate me for the lie, and she'd probably hate you for enabling it. That evening, I sat in my car outside our house in Oakwood Terrace, watching through the living room window as Charlotte moved around our kitchen. Our modest two-bedroom home suddenly felt impossibly small compared to Logan's sprawling estate. The ceramic bowls she was arranging wedding gifts from 5 years ago looked shabby next to the crystal and china I'd seen at Logan's dinner parties. I thought about all the nights I'd worked late, not just at my day job, but on Logan's empire. All the weekends I'd spent catching up on paperwork while actually researching investment opportunities for my brother. All the times Charlotte had complained about my lack of ambition while I was secretly building the very empire she now, Kay, admired. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you were enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. When I finally walked inside, Charlotte was waiting for me with an expression I'd never seen before, determined, sad, and strangely relieved. "We need to talk," she said. I set down my briefcase, knowing that everything was about to change. "Kay, I've been thinking about us, about our future, about what I want from life." She twisted her wedding ring, a nervous habit I'd grown to recognize. "Samuel, do you ever wonder if we settled for each other?" The question was a dagger to the heart, especially knowing that Logan was probably texting her at that very moment. From the penthouse I'd helped him buy. "Every day," I answered honestly. Her eyes widened, as if she'd expected me to fight for us. But how could I fight for something when the weapons I'd need to win the truth about Logan's success would destroy? "Everything anyway?" "Then maybe," Charlotte said softly. "It's time we both stopped settling." The divorce papers arrived on a Tuesday morning, delivered by a courier who couldn't have been older than 22. He looked almost apologetic as he handed me the manila, enveloped, as if he understood the weight of what he was carrying. I signed for the documents and closed the door, leaning against it as I processed what had just happened. 3 months had passed since Charlotte's late-night confession. 3 months of uncomfortable silences and separate bedrooms. But somehow I'd still hoped we could work things out. The papers were thorough. Charlotte was asking for half of everything. House, my 401k, even the modest savings account I'd built up over the years. What she didn't know was that my real assets were hidden in offshore accounts and shell companies, the same ones I'd used to fund Logan's empire. Legally, I was worth about $200,000. In reality, I was worth closer to $50 million. My phone rang. "Logan, Sam, I heard about the papers. Are you okay?" I almost laughed at the irony. Just peachy. "How did you hear about them so quickly?" The silence on the other end told me everything I needed to know. "She's there with you, isn't she?" I asked. "Sam, ... Just answer the question, Logan." "Yes, she came here last night. She was upset, crying. She said she couldn't stay in the house anymore because everything reminded her of what you two used to have, what we used to have, as if our marriage had been some distant memory instead of something that ended because my wife fell in love with a man who was essentially my creation. "I want to see you," I said. "Both of you, tonight." "I don't think that's a good idea. I don't care what you think is a good idea. Rosewood Restaurant, 8 p.m. If you don't show up, I'll come to your house." That evening I sat in the corner booth of Rosewood Restaurant, watching the entrance. I'd chosen this place deliberately. Was where Charlotte and I had our first date 7 years ago. The irony wasn't lost on me. They arrived together, Charlotte's hand resting on Logan's arm as he guided her through the restaurant. She was wearing the blue dress I'd bought her for her birthday last year. Seeing her in it with him felt like a physical blow. Logan looked nervous as they approached the table. Charlotte looked determined, as if she'd rehearsed what she was going to say. "Samuel," she said, settling into the seat across from me. "Thank you for agreeing to meet. Did I have a choice?" Charlotte flinched, but Logan leaned forward. "Look, Sam, I know this is awkward, but we're family. We can work through this like adults." Family. I tasted the word like poison. Is that what you call it when you steal your brother's wife? "He didn't steal anyone," Logan said, his voice rising slightly. "Charlotte made her own choice." "Based on what? Your incredible success? Your brilliant business mind? Your natural talent for making money? Charlotte looked confused by my tone, but Logan had gone pale. Your what? I continued. Your mansion. In Millbrook Heights? Your private jet? Your art collection? Tell me, Logan, which one of your accomplishments convinced my wife to leave me? Samuel, what are you talking about? Why are you being like this? I pulled out my phone and opened one of my encrypted apps, scrolling through months of financial transactions. Logan, do you want to explain to Charlotte how you afforded the Singapore expansion? Or should I? Sam, don't. The $2.3 million investment that made it possible. Do you want to tell her where that money came from? Logan's hands were shaking now. You're being ridiculous. I turned my phone toward Charlotte, showing her a wire transfer from one of my shell companies to Logan's business account. The timestamp was from 2 weeks ago, the same day Logan had announced his latest acquisition to the press. What is this? Charlotte asked, squinting at the screen. That's your fiancé's latest brilliant business move? I said. Funded entirely by me. Just like every other deal he's made for the past 5 years. The color drained from Charlotte's face. That's impossible. I scrolled through more transactions, each one a nail in the coffin of Logan's carefully constructed image. The TechFlow acquisition? Me? The European expansion? Me, the venture capital fund that everyone thinks made Logan a genius? I seeded it with my own money and guided every single investment decision. You're lying, Charlotte whispered, but I could see the doubt creeping into her eyes. Logan suddenly stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. This is insane. You're making this up because you're jealous. Sit down, Logan. My voice was quiet, deadly calm. We're not finished. No, I won't sit down. You've lost your mind. Charlotte, let's go. But Charlotte wasn't moving. She was staring. At my phone? At the evidence that was destroying everything she thought she knew about the man she'd chosen over me? The art in your penthouse, I continued. I researched every piece. The wine in your cellar? I chose every bottle. The business. Strategy that made you millions? I spent 2 years developing it. Stop, Logan said. But his voice cracked. Even your famous speeches at industry conferences, I wrote them, every word. Every brilliant insight that made Charlotte fall in love with you came from me. Charlotte looked up at Logan, her eyes filling. With tears, is this true? Logan's silence was all the answer she needed. You chose him over me, I said to Charlotte, because you thought he was everything I wasn't. Ambitious, successful, brilliant. But he's none of those things. He's exactly what I am maxed up. I was stupid enough to hide behind him. I stood up, leaving $100 bill on the table. Congratulations on your engagement, I said. I hope you'll be very happy living in the house I bought, driving the cars I paid for, wearing the jewelry I helped him afford. Just remember that every time you kiss him, you're really kissing me. I walked out of the restaurant, leaving them sitting in stunned silence. Surrounded by the wreckage of 5 years of carefully constructed lies, 6 months later, I was standing on the observation deck of the Stratosphere building in downtown Phoenix, watching the sunrise paint the desert mountains gold. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd spent 5 years building someone else's empire from the shadows. And now I was finally ready to build my own in the light. The divorce had been finalized 3 weeks ago. Charlotte got the house, half my official assets, and a future with Logan that was built on foundations shakier than she could possibly imagine. I got my freedom, my real wealth, and a clean slate in a city where nobody knew my story. My phone buzzed with a text from my new business partner, Aria Campbell, a former hedge fund manager I'd met at a financial conference in Denver. The investors loved the presentation. Phoenix Dynamics is officially funded. Congratulations, Mr. Hoosier, you're about to become very famous. Phoenix Dynamics. My own company. My own name on the door. There's no more hiding behind shell companies and anonymous investments. For the first time in my adult life, I was going to take credit for my own work. The conference call that morning went better than I dared to hope. 3 major venture capital firms wanted to partner with us, and 2 Fortune 500 companies were already expressing interest in our financial technology platform. In 6 months, I'd gone from being the invisible puppet master to being courted by the biggest names in Silicon Valley. After the call, I sat in my new office, a modest space for now, but with a view of the mountains and room to grow unchecked. The news. Logan's name was everywhere, but not for the reasons he'd want. Techflow Industries under investigation for financial irregularities. Green Enterprises stock plummets amid fraud allegations. Billionaire Logan Green's empire built on borrowed money? Borrowed money? I'd seen it coming for months. Without me feeding him information and funding his moves, Logan had started making increasingly desperate decisions. The Singapore deal had fallen through when he couldn't answer basic technical questions during the investor meeting. His European expansion had collapsed when his financial projections proved to be wildly optimistic fiction. Worse, the FBI had started looking into the complex web of shell companies and offshore accounts that had funded his rise. They hadn't connected anything to me yet. It had been too careful for that, but Logan was spiraling, making mistakes, leaving digital footprints that led straight back to his crumbling empire. My office phone rang. Charlotte, I stared at her name on the caller ID for a long moment before answering. Hello, Charlotte? Samuel. Her voice sounded hollow, exhausted. I need to ask you something. Go ahead. The money. Logan's money. How much of it was really yours? I leaned back in my chair, looking out at the mountains. All of it. Every penny. She was quiet for so long I thought she'd hung up. The investigators came to see me yesterday, she finally said. They wanted to know about our finances during the marriage, about how you could afford things on your salary. What did you tell them? The truth. That I never questioned it because I trusted you. She paused. I should have questioned it. I should have questioned a lot of things. Charlotte, I saw the news about your company, Phoenix Dynamics. The investors are calling you a financial genius. The next big thing in fintech? It's early days? No, it's not. Her voice was firmer now. I've been doing research, Samuel. Reading about market analysis and investment strategies. I understand now what you were doing for Logan, what you've been capable of all along. She took a shaky breath. I threw away a marriage to a brilliant man because I thought he wasn't ambitious enough. I chose someone who was living off borrowed genius and borrowed money. I'm not calling to ask you to take me back. I know that ship has sailed. I'm calling to apologize. I closed my eyes, feeling something I hadn't expected, not vindication, but sadness. Sadness for what we'd lost, for the ways we'd both failed each other, for the years of hiding and pretending that had brought us to this point. Thank you, I said. That means more than you know. Will you ever forgive me? I thought about it, really thought about it. Already have. We both made mistakes, Charlotte. Should have trusted you with the truth from the beginning. I should have trusted you to have ambitions worth believing in. After we hung up, I sat in the quiet of my office, processing the conversation. My phone buzzed with another text from Arya. Just got word that Goldman Sachs wants to meet with us. Next week. Also, there's a reporter from Forbes who wants to do a profile on you. Ready to be famous? I looked out at the desert landscape, so different from the East Coast world I'd left behind. Somewhere back there, Logan was probably dealing with lawyers and investigators, trying to explain how his billion-dollar empire had evaporated almost overnight. Charlotte was living in the house I'd helped her win in the divorce, surrounded by reminders of a marriage that had been built on secrets and lies, but I was here, in Phoenix, building something real with my own name on it for the first time in my life. I wasn't hiding behind anyone else's success or enabling someone else's dreams at the expense of my own. My phone rang again. This time it was a number I didn't recognize, with a California area code. Samuel Hughes speaking. Mr. Hughes, this is Jessica Chen from TechCrunch. I'm working on a story about the rise of Phoenix Dynamics and the fall of Green Enterprises. I was wondering if you'd be available for an interview. Smiled, looking out at the mountains where the morning sun was burning away the last of the shadows. I'd be happy to talk, I said. I think it's time people heard the real story. The FBI agents arrived at Phoenix Dynamics on a Tuesday morning, just as I was reviewing quarterly projections with Arya. Through my office window, I watched them flash their badges to our receptionist, and my blood turned to ice. Samuel? Arya? Noticed my expression. What's wrong? We have company, I said, nodding toward the lobby. Agent Sarah Morrison and Agent Kevin Walsh looked exactly like what you'd expect from federal investigators. Serious expressions, dark suits, and the kind of confidence that comes from holding all the cards. They settled into the conference room chairs with the casual authority of people who'd done this hundreds of times before. Mr. Hughes, Agent Morrison began, opening a thick file folder. We're investigating financial irregularities related to Green Enterprises and its subsidiary companies. We believe you may have information relevant to our case. My lawyer, David Chen, had prepared me for this moment. I'm happy to cooperate with your investigation, I said carefully. Agent Walsh slid a series of bank statements across the table. Can you explain these transfers from your personal accounts to various shell companies between 2018 and 2023? I looked at the papers, recognizing every transaction. They'd done their homework, traced the money from my accounts through multiple layers of corporations and offshore entities, all the way to Logan's empire. Those were investment transactions, I said. Completely legal. Investment transactions. That you never reported to the IRS's income when they generated returns, Agent Morrison added. We're talking about approximately $47 million in unreported gains, Mr. Hughes. The room felt like it was spinning. I'd been meticulous about my taxes. But the complex web of international accounts and shell companies had apparently left gaps that the FBI had found. We're also curious about the timing, Agent Walsh continued. These investments seem to correlate perfectly with your brother's business decisions. It's almost as if someone was feeding him information about market opportunities. David Chen leaned forward. Are you accusing my client of insider trading? We're not accusing anyone of anything yet, Agent Morrison said. But we are investigating potential securities fraud, tax evasion, and market manipulation. If Mr. Hughes was using non-public information to guide investments, she didn't need to finish the sentence. If they could prove insider trading. Was looking at decades in federal prison. The meeting lasted 3 hours. When the agents finally left, they took copies of our servers, all our financial records, and what felt like my entire future with them. How bad is this? Arya asked as we sat in the wreckage of my office. Bad, I admitted. They can prove. I was manipulating markets through Logan... But you weren't, right? You were just making smart investments? I looked at her, this brilliant woman who'd believed in me enough to start a company together, and realized I was about to lose everything. Again, it's complicated, I said. That evening, I sat in my Phoenix apartment, staring at the news on my laptop. The story had already broken. Phoenix Dynamics founder, under federal investigation, financial genius or financial fraud, the Samuel Hughes. Question FBI raids offices of rising tech star. My phone had been ringing non-stop reporters, investors, clients, all wanting to know if the golden boy of Phoenix's tech scene was actually a criminal. The worst call came at 9 p.m. Arya. Samuel, I need to tell you something, she said, her voice strained. The board of directors met this afternoon. They're asking you to step down as CEO pending the investigation. I closed my eyes. And you voted with them. I had to. The company has to survive this. And with your name attached, it's my company, Arya. I built it from nothing. I know. But the investors are threatening to pull out. Our biggest client just canceled their contract. If you don't step aside voluntarily, they're going to force you out. So that's it? After everything we've built together. This isn't personal, Samuel. It's business. After she hung up, I poured myself a whiskey and stood on my balcony looking out at the lights of Phoenix. 6 months ago, I thought I was finally free from the shadows, finally able to build something under my own name. Now I was facing the possibility of losing everything: my company, my reputation, my freedom. The cruel irony wasn't lost on me. I'd spent 5 years secretly building Logan's empire, and when that collapsed, it was dragging me down with it. The same financial genius that had made my brother rich was now being twisted into evidence of criminal activity. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Saw the news, I'm sorry. I know what it's like to watch everything fall apart. If you need someone to talk to, I'm here. See, Charlotte. Even after everything, she was reaching out. I started to type a response, then deleted it. What was there to say? That I'd thought I was so smart playing puppet master from the shadows, only to discover that puppet masters eventually get tangled in their own strings? I finished my whiskey and went to bed, but sleep wouldn't come. Instead, I lay in the darkness, thinking about federal prison, about losing Phoenix Dynamics, about watching my life's work get dismantled by investigators who saw criminal conspiracy where I saw brotherly love gone wrong. For the first time since leaving the East Coast, I wondered if I should have just stayed invisible, stayed safe in the shadows, stayed content to be the man behind the curtain instead of trying to step into the spotlight. The spotlight, I was learning, was a very dangerous place to be. Dangerous place to be. The call that changed everything came at 6:47 a.m. on a Thursday morning, 3 weeks after the FBI raid. I'd barely slept in days, surviving on coffee, and the faint hope that my lawyer could find some technicality to save me from federal prison. Samuel? It was Agent Morrison, and she sounded different, less predatory, more human. I need you to come to our field office. There's been a development. An hour later, I sat in the same sterile conference room where they'd interrogated me, but this time the atmosphere was completely different. Agent Morrison looked almost apologetic as she slid a tablet across the table. We received this yesterday. She said, "It's a full confession." On the screen was a video of Logan, but not the confident billionaire I'd known. This Logan looked broken, hollow-eyed, sitting in what appeared to be a hotel room with curtains drawn. "My name is Logan Green," his recorded voice began, "and I need to tell the truth about my brother, Samuel Hughes." Watched in stunned silence as Logan laid out everything: the failed startups, his desperate plea for help, the 5 years of secret assistance that had built his empire. But what shocked me most was what came next. Samuel never engaged in insider trading or market manipulation, Logan continued, his voice cracking. Every investment he made was based on legitimate research and analysis. I was the one who violated securities laws by trading on information he gave me in confidence. I was the one who failed to report income properly. Samuel trusted me with his strategies, and I used them illegally without his knowledge. The video went on for 47 minutes. Logan confessed to securities fraud, tax evasion, and falsifying business documents. He detailed how he'd misrepresented his relationship with me to investors, claiming credit for financial strategies I'd developed. Most importantly, he provided evidence that I'd been completely unaware of his illegal activities. Samuel Hughes is innocent of any wrongdoing, Logan concluded, tears streaming down his face. He's the most brilliant financial mind I've ever known. I destroyed his life because I was too proud to admit I needed help. If anyone should be in prison, it's me. Agent Morrison stopped the video. We found him in a hotel in the Cayman Islands yesterday morning. He'd been planning to disappear permanently, but apparently his conscience got the better of him. "Where is he now?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "In custody. He'll be facing multiple federal charges, but his cooperation will help in his sentencing." She paused. "Mr. Hughes, based on this confession and our investigation, all charges against you are being dropped. You're free to go." Free. The word felt surreal after weeks of living under the shadow of federal prison. The next few days passed in a blur of phone calls, meetings, and media interviews. The same reporters who'd been calling me a criminal were now hailing me as a financial genius who'd been wrongfully accused. Phoenix Dynamics board unanimously voted to reinstate me as CEO. The investors who'd fled came crawling back with apologies and bigger offers. But the call that mattered most came on Friday evening. "Charlotte, I saw the news," she said. "Logan's confession, I don't even know what to say." "You don't have to say anything." "Yes, I do." Her voice was firm. "Samuel, I owe you more than an apology. I owe you the truth about something I've never admitted, not even to myself. I waited. When I married you, I knew you were brilliant. I saw it in college, in the way you could solve problems that left everyone else confused. But somewhere along the way, I got caught up in the idea that success had to look a certain way, flashy, public, obvious. I stopped seeing your brilliance because it wasn't packaged the way I expected. She took a shaky breath. Logan was everything I thought I wanted. Confident, visible, acclaimed. But he was just reflecting your light. I fell in love with your mind wearing his face, and I was too stupid to realize it. Charlotte, I'm not asking you to take me back, she said quickly. I know I destroyed that possibility. I'm just asking you to know that I finally understand what I lost, and I'm proud of what you've built in Phoenix. You deserve all the recognition you're getting. After we hung up, I stood on my balcony, looking out at the Phoenix skyline. I thought about the journey that had brought me here, the years of hiding, the betrayal, the collapse, and now the resurrection. My phone buzzed with a text from Aria. Board meeting tomorrow at 10. We have 3 acquisition offers and Goldman. Sachs wants to discuss a partnership. Ready to conquer the world, boss? I smiled, typing back. Let's do it. The next morning's news cycle was dominated by a different story. Phoenix Dynamics valued at $2 billion in latest funding round, and Samuel Hughes, from Shadow, genius, to Silicon Valley superstar. But the headline that made me proudest was in the Phoenix Business Journal. Local tech company announces $50 million education initiative for underprivileged students. I'd learned something important during my darkest hours, that true success isn't about staying in the shadows or stepping into the spotlight. It's about using your gifts to create something meaningful, something that extends beyond yourself. 6 months later, I was standing on stage at the TechCrunch Disrupt conference in San Francisco, delivering the keynote address to 3,000 entrepreneurs and investors. In the audience, I spotted familiar faces, former colleagues, competitors, and journalists who'd covered my story. Success, I told the crowd, isn't about being the smartest person in the room. It's about lifting others up with your intelligence. For too many years, I hid my abilities because I thought humility meant invisibility. But real humility means using your gifts in service of something bigger than yourself. The applause was thunderous, but what moved me most was seeing Aria in the front row, tears in her eyes, giving me a standing ovation. After the speech, I checked my phone and found a message from an unexpected source, Logan, writing from federal prison where he was serving a 5-year sentence. Watched your speech online. I'm proud of you, little brother. You're finally getting the recognition you always deserved. I'm sorry it took me so long to give you credit for your brilliance. Use it to change the world. You're the only one who can. I looked out at the San Francisco skyline, thinking about all the dreams being built and rebuilt in this city. All the second chances and redemptions waiting to unfold. My story had become one of them, not the story of a man who hid in the shadows, but of one who learned to step into the light without losing his soul. That evening, as my plane lifted off from San Francisco back to Phoenix, I realized that my wife had been wrong about one thing. I hadn't traded up when I left my old life behind. I'd simply finally become the person I was always meant to be, not the man behind the curtain, but the architect of my own empire, built on a foundation of truth, hard work, and the courage to claim what was mine. The boy who'd once hidden his homework answers so his brother could succeed had become the man who'd learned that true success means writing your own story, in your own name, under your own spotlight. And this time I wasn't sharing the credit with anyone. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my corner office on the 47th floor of Hughes Tower in downtown Phoenix. From my desk, I could see the entire valley spread out below, a testament to how far I'd come from that modest analyst cubicle where this story began. Phoenix Dynamics had become more than just a company. It was now a movement. Our financial technology platform was used by over 200 million people worldwide, democratizing investment opportunities that had once been reserved for the wealthy elite. The education initiative we'd launched had provided scholarships to over 10,000 students, many of whom were now working in tech companies across the country. My assistant knocked softly on the door. "Mr. Hughes, your 10 o'clock is here." I looked up from the quarterly reports that showed we'd hit another record-breaking quarter. "Send him in." Logan walked into my office, looking older but healthier than I'd seen him in years. Prison had been hard on him, 3 years served of his 5-year sentence, with early release for good behavior and continued cooperation with federal investigations. But it had also given him something he'd never had before: Perspective. Hello. Little brother, he said, managing a genuine smile. Logan. I stood up, and after a moment's hesitation, we embraced. How are you adjusting? One day at a time. He settled into the chair across from my desk, looking around the office with something. That might have been pride. This is incredible, Sam. Everything you've built here. We have a lot to talk about, I said, pulling out a file folder. I've been thinking about your letter. 6 months ago, Logan had written to me from prison with a proposition. To work for Phoenix Dynamics when he was released, not in any executive capacity, but in our community outreach program, helping other entrepreneurs who'd made mistakes avoid the pitfalls that had destroyed his life. I know I don't deserve this opportunity, Logan said quietly, but I want to spend the rest of my life trying to make amends for what I did to you. And maybe help some other people avoid the same mistakes. I slid the employment contract across the desk. It's entry level, I warned. You'll be working with kids fresh out of college, helping them understand business ethics and financial responsibility. The pay is about what you used to spend on lunch. Logan picked up the contract, scanning it with tears in his eyes. It's perfect, he said. Thank you. There's one condition, I added. You tell your story, all of it, to every group we work with. No editing, no excuses. They need to understand the real cost of cutting corners and taking credit for other people's work. Agreed. Logan signed the contract without hesitation. I owe you more than I can ever repay, Sam, but I'll spend every day trying. After Logan left, I stood at my window, thinking about the journey that had brought us all here. My phone buzzed with a text from Arya, who was now Chief Operating Officer and my closest friend. Lunch at Desert Rose? I have news about the merger. As I gathered my things, I noticed a framed photo on my desk, me receiving the Forbes Entrepreneur of the Year award last month. But next to it was another photo that meant more to me. The first class of Hughes Foundation scholarship recipients at their graduation ceremony. The elevator down was quiet, giving me time to reflect. 5 years ago, I'd thought success meant recognition, meant stepping out of the shadows and claiming credit for my brilliance. I'd been partially right. Recognition mattered, and I deserved credit for my work. But real success, I'd learned, was about using that recognition to open doors for others. Charlotte had found her own path too. She'd remarried a kind pediatrician named Marcus, who appreciated her for exactly who she was. She'd sent me a wedding invitation, which I'd politely declined, but I'd sent a generous gift and a note wishing her happiness. Some chapters in life need to close completely for new ones to begin. As I walked through the lobby of Hughes Tower, past the wall of photos showing our scholarship recipients and community programs, I realized that the boy who'd once hidden his homework so his brother could succeed had finally learned the most important lesson of all. The greatest success isn't making yourself look good. It's making others become their best. And sometimes, the longest journey is the one from the shadows to the light, especially when you choose to use that light to illuminate the path for everyone walking behind you. My story had taught me that behind every empire built in shadows, there's usually someone waiting for their moment to step into the sun. I'd finally claimed mine, and I was using it to help others find theirs. That was a legacy worth building. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.